Welcome again, everyone. Thanks so much for taking time out of your day to join us. We're going to go ahead and get started right now. Before we start the formal portion of our presentation, I wanted to go over a couple of quick reminders. The first is some very important information about the full prescribing information for Spinraza. If you look, you should have a little control panel probably along the right side of your screen as you're viewing this webinar, but perhaps on the top of your screen as well. In there, you're going to see two opportunities for you to go ahead and view the full prescribing info for Spinraza. One is a PDF handout, which you can download, and then the other is in our chat window, and that is a link directly to the spinraza.com website, where, again, you can view the full prescribing info. I also wanted to let you know that we have the opportunity for you to submit questions. We're going to start with some information from the team at Cure SMA, from MDA, and then from Biogen as well. But once that's done, we're going to open it up for questions. Many of you submitted your questions when you did your registration, and we really appreciate that. But you can continue to submit your questions during this webinar. In that same sort of section of your control panel that has the prescribing info, you should also see a function called questions. Just go ahead, type in your question, send it. It'll come to us, and then again, towards the end of the webinar, we'll have a dedicated Q&A time. I did also want to remind you that this webinar is for U.S. participants only. We will be releasing more information for international participants in the coming days, but this specific webinar deals with the U.S. FDA approval and therefore is for U.S. audiences only. So with those reminders out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Kenneth Hobby, the president of Cure SMA. He's going to give you some opening remarks and let you know what the rest of the agenda is going to look like.
Hello and welcome everybody. Very pleased, very proud to be having this call today, and just wanted to say thank you to start off with for everybody joining us today. I'm going to go through just a quick agenda, the topics that we're going to try and cover, and also the people that are joining us here today. And then we'll try and get into the main topics that we have today. And then, as Megan was saying, we're going to try to save a lot of time towards the end for the question and answer session. So the topics that we're going to cover, I think in my mind, they kind of fall into three areas. One thing that we're going to try and go over quickly, and this will be myself and then also Valerie Quick from the MDA, is really talking about how we got to where we are today. And really that's about you, everybody that's on the call here today in the SMA community. And I think it is important for us to take this time just to look back quickly at what it is that we've done, what it is that got us to this point today with the first approval of a treatment for SMA. We're then going to turn to the topics which I think are really kind of the questions and the topics that are on everybody's mind the most, which is what might this drug do? And that's going to be some information that's come from the clinical trials and really what is the key thing here, the FDA approved label. And then a key area also is how do people get access to this therapy? So those two topics I think are going to be the bulk that we're going to turn to and that are also going to be focused on in the question and answers. And that's where we have some people from Biogen who are joining us today. So talking about the prescribing information for Spinraza, we're going to have Weldon Farwell joining us. And Weldon is the Senior Director of Clinical Development at Biogen. We're then going to have two people joining us who are going to talk about the services and the support programs that Biogen has. And so we're going to have Cynthia Cassandra, who is the Senior Field Director of Rare Diseases at Biogen, and then also Liam Moy, who's the Associate Director of Support Services, Rare Diseases at Biogen. And Liam's going to be guiding us through Biogen's patient services program, the support programs that Biogen has. And then Cynthia is going to focus us on some more of the people, the individuals who are at Biogen, who are going to be supporting and interacting with a lot of you on the call today, a lot of the families that we have here with us. And then we also have a few other people who are going to get involved when we get to the question and answer session. So from Biogen, we also have Jillian Mullins, who's the patient advocacy contact for us, and then Juan Chavez, who is the medical director, the medical lead at Biogen. So with that, I wanted to move into kind of this first area that we're going to talk about, just stepping back a little bit and talking about Cure SMA, MDA, and really the SMA community. And I think for me, this is the part of the story, how we got to this point today, this approval that we just got about a week ago, and now we're getting into the topic of how we actually roll this out. I think it's important to kind of look at where this all really began. And I think that's looking at the SMA community and really a very simple beginning, which is this community is about families supporting each other. That's really what this whole community has grown from, individual families supporting each other for the last 30, 35 years. And it's really that simple beginning, that simple aspect of families helping each other, supporting each other, giving each other hope, which has built this community to what it is today. And this amazing result, in my mind, comes just from that simple aspect. That's really what has grown this community and made it as strong as it is. The strength of this community really is the key part that's got us to this result with the first approved treatment and the amazing result that we've got, which we'll dig into a little bit. And really it's that strength which has allowed us to build the community. It's allowed us to bring other partners into the community, talking about researchers, companies, the FDA very recently, and even what we're going to be doing next, which is bringing the insurance providers, those companies, into our community as well. And it's really keeping that community together, staying together, and being a community about all ages and all types of SMA, which has got us to this point. This next slide that you have up, hopefully everybody knows these details. This is really what all of you families, our chapters, have done, the impact of Cure SMA, the support programs that we've had, the newly diagnosed families that we help every year and welcome into our community. And again, that key aspect of where this community began from, but what it is that we still do every year for any newly diagnosed family, helping them, welcoming them into the community. It's really from those support programs that we've been able to build the fundraising support, the support then that's gone into the research area, and the amazing amount of research funding that's actually gone on through Cure SMA through all of your efforts. One key aspect that, again, I hope a lot of people know about, but also talking about what's going to be coming up next, is the annual SMA Conference. And so this year, that's at the end of June. It's going to be in Disney World. And I think that's an amazing event on itself, for it's the place where our community comes together, all the different groups that I mentioned, one place at one time. And it's always been an amazing experience to share information and experiences and share that hope that we've had over the last many years. I think this year in particular, it's going to be an amazing time for us to come together in person and celebrate this achievement, but also it'll be a key point where 6 months from now, it'll be a key chance for us to all share information and share our learnings from this rollout. So I think it's going to be a great time for everybody to come together, celebrate, and also do what we've always been doing, but again, share and support each other. This next slide says a little bit about some of the specific programs, the support programs again, but also the research angle. And I think it's important there, and this is where I'll just take a little bit of time to talk about this specific story. The research funding that we've done, it's always been about building from the early academic stages through drug discovery, drug development efforts into clinical trials. And a new area, which we've done recently over the last few years, looking at clinical care as well. And that's an area which is going to be, as we've been saying, even more important now. With an approved therapy, care is even more important. It's been very important just for what it's been able to do, providing support over the last few years. But when you have a therapy, we really have to focus on that clinical care side as well. So that's an area which we're going to be putting increased resources in as well. With the story here of Spinraza, I think it's very good to step back and look at the different stages that it progressed through with each of those areas. So looking at the academic groups, University of Massachusetts and Cold Spring Harbor, that were involved early on, and then as the program transitioned over to Ionis, and then Biogen as well. I think throughout that whole series of steps with this particular program, it was really a story of groups building on each other. It wasn't just a handoff to the next group to take over, but really these groups staying together and building to a group of individuals and companies and groups, and then including the FDA as well recently, which worked together to get this result. I think it's important as well to step back and know that the result that we got here today happened from us all staying together. There were a lot of very difficult decisions, difficult steps that had to happen through the development of this drug. When you look at the multiple trials that were done, the narrow criteria that had to be put in place for each of those multiple trials, the placebo controls, a lot of those were very difficult, challenging steps that had to happen. but that's really what was so critically important in getting us to the result that we've got. And I think for the result that we've got, it is important, I think, to look at, this is the first ever treatment that we've had for SMA. It's an approved treatment that came very quickly in the end. The clinical trials went very quickly. I think, as you all know, there were interim analyses which stopped some of the trials early. And then also the FDA process itself moved very quickly through. And really, I think we're talking years there that were saved off getting the final approval here for everybody. This was, again, the first time that we've ever gone through these steps. And I think that's another key thing to remember, that this was the first approval, but the first time we ever went to the FDA, and we got the approval that first time going through and asking. And then the other key part is the label that we were able to get at the end here. Getting the approved label for SMA, pediatric and adult. I think we all know what that means. And again, I think that reflects this key aspect of our community, that we're about all ages and all types. So to get that result is just amazing for us all. And I know that's something which I think has made everybody very happy. There's definitely questions about that, but that's a key part which I think is one of the real success stories from this. I think it's important to recognize as well, talking about the companies that were involved with Ionis, and then Biogen, who's got involved in these last stages. I think it's important when we're looking at some of the challenges that are going to be coming towards us now in getting access, to remember that, you know, Biogen was involved here in all these difficult decisions when we were talking about the clinical trials and the placebo controls. I think it's important to know that this is a company which didn't take shortcuts, a company that took the difficult path, which ultimately was the right path that got us to this great result. And I think I'm hoping that knowledge of knowing that you've got a company here that you can trust should be something that really helps us over these next couple of months with the rollout, that you can rely on this company to do things the right way, not take shortcuts. And really they I hope, are going to be a company that we can all trust as we go into these next stages with all the commitments that they're making to us as the rollout of this therapy. And then finally, I really just wanted to say, I think, a thank you to everybody on here, everybody that's been involved in supporting this community, whether it is supporting other families, raising funds, our chapters, the key chapters out in the local communities with their efforts, everybody that's participated in the clinical trials, and I think especially we all know the sacrifice that was made by those families that were involved in the placebo arms, just the unknown and being on placebo. That was just a tremendous sacrifice. And then finally as well, I think it's important for us, while we're celebrating and looking forward to this amazing achievement we've been waiting for so long for, is to remember those families that have lost over all these years as well. The thousands of families who've lost but stayed involved in this community, stayed strong, and stayed full of hope for the day that we've actually got to now. So I think for us, it's a good time to remember those families as well. So with that, I wanted to turn over to Valerie Quick from the MDA.
Thanks, Kenneth. Real quick before we turn it over to Valerie, I wanted to give a couple reminders just for those who are a little late in joining us. First of all, very important information. We have the full prescribing information available for Spinraza. If you look along the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see a handout. It's a PDF handout with the full prescribing info that you can go ahead and download. And then in the chat box, which is the same box where you'll also enter your questions, which I'll talk about in just a second, you can also see a web link to the full prescribing information. Speaking of questions, many of you already submitted your questions when you registered, but we are continuing to take questions. So if you have questions as our presenters are talking, please feel free to go ahead and send those in, and we will get to as many of them as we possibly can towards the end of this webinar. But I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Valerie with that. Valerie, are you with us?
So I think we might be having some difficulty with Valerie just getting on the line. So if she comes on, we'll actually get her to join us quickly and we can go over the slides that MDA has in here. I'll maybe just quickly kind of go over them. The MDA has been involved in this program with Cure SMA and the community and clinicians for a long time. They've had a role in SMA, but also other neuromuscular diseases, and the slide here shows what they've been doing for over 65 years in the areas of looking at research, funding research in multiple different diseases. Also the care aspect, which I think we all know is critical for one of the MDA's roles, how they actually are involved in delivering care for all of the neuromuscular diseases that they have. Along with research and care, the MDA is also involved in this key aspect of advocacy and empowering families with, again, information, support, and hope. That's one of the key roles that the MDA's had in our community as well. And then in the next slide, this is just focusing a little bit on, I think, some of the current goals that the MDA has when you're looking at the aspects still of research, talking about the ultimate goal that we all have, building from a treatment to a cure, the care aspect as well, and what I was saying at the start, how with an approved therapy, treatment and care go hand in hand. They're really just as important as they've always been, making sure that we have the best quality care, that we're improving care and getting people aspect to it. But it really becomes even more important when you have a therapy that you want to make the most of an approved therapy by doing everything that you can to have the best quality care available. And then finally as well, the advocacy efforts that the MDA has in place with many programs that they have for support, a young adult program, and then other resources that they have with their summer camps and just general advocacy efforts, which Cure SMA and MDA partner up on a lot of these advocacy efforts when we're talking about issues in DC on the legislative front. So with that, I think we'd like to turn over to our representatives from Biogen, who I mentioned earlier, who are joining us. And Biogen, do you want to introduce?
Sure. So I believe from Biogen, I'll let them go ahead and introduce themselves, but I believe we're going to lead off with Wilden Farwell talking a little bit about the prescribing information.
Hi, this is Wilden Farwell. Can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you. Welcome back.
Great. That's great. Are we ready to proceed, or do we need to do anything more?
Nope, you guys are ready to go.
All right, fantastic. Well, sincere apologies, everybody, for the little delay in getting started, but we all at Biogen are very excited to be with you and appreciative to Cure SMA and MDA for allowing us this opportunity to speak with you about Biogen and then also about Spinraza. So just to start off a minute on Biogen itself, we know that many of you may just begin to learn about who we are as a company. Biogen is a global company. Our headquarters are here in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And we are a company that's based on research as well as development for drugs primarily for neurologic indications such as multiple sclerosis. We are very excited now to have completed the application process here in the U.S. For Spinraza, and are very excited that it is now approved. And so I would like to talk you through the prescribing information that has been shared with you on this call, and you can find it online as well. So with that, next slide. So again, what we're going to do on this portion of the call is just to walk through the prescribing information a little bit, and then I'll pass it over to my colleagues to speak about some other resources available from Biogen. But to begin to talk a little bit about the program, I first want to just take the opportunity to thank the community, thank each of the families and participants who have worked with us and worked with Ionis over the many years that has led to the results that were the basis of this application. It has required a lot of effort. We recognize that there have been a lot of time and efforts dedicated to this, and we very much appreciate all of those. And we sincerely appreciate the support of Cure SMA and MDA in this effort. It really has been a team effort, and we very much appreciate their participation in this as well. So just to start off with the indication, Spinraza is a prescription medication used to treat spinal muscular atrophy in pediatric and adult patients. This was the basis of our application, and we're very pleased that the FDA agreed to this indication, which is now reflected here. There are some important safety information that we will speak to here. This is contained within the USPI, but just to make sure that everyone understands, there is an increased risk of bleeding complications that's been observed in the administration of similar medicines. Your healthcare provider should perform blood tests at the baseline and then before each dose of Spinraza to monitor for early signs of these risks. And then if you notice unexpected bleeding, please contact your healthcare professional so that they can evaluate that with you. Also, an increased risk of kidney damage, including potentially fatal acute inflammation of the kidney, has been observed after administration of similar medicines. Again, your healthcare provider should perform urine testing at baseline and before each dose of Spinraza to monitor for signs of this risk. Again, if you notice any difficulties with urination, that is something that you can speak to your healthcare provider about. The most common side effects of Spinraza include upper and lower respiratory tract infections, complete or partial collapse of the lung or lobe of the lung, constipation, headache, back pain, post-lumbar puncture syndrome. Again, these are events that you can speak with your healthcare provider about. These are not all of the possible side effects of Spinraza. Your healthcare provider can speak with you about other events that you should be watching for, or other events that he or she may want to speak with you about. If you notice any of these events, please speak with your healthcare provider. You may also report these events to the FDA. There's a 1-800 number for the FDA where those events can be reported. And as with all of the information that we're going to talk to here today, please speak with your healthcare provider. They can provide the most detailed information and most up-to-date information on Spinraza. So then just a little information about what Spinraza actually is. So Spinraza is the first and only FDA-approved treatment for spinal muscular atrophy. As we know, spinal muscular atrophy is a genetic disease in which a lack of the SMN protein affects the nervous system that controls motor function. In ENDEAR, the pivotal controlled clinical trial of individuals with infantile onset SMA, patients who were treated with Spinraza were able to achieve clinically meaningful improvement in motor function compared with untreated individuals. And this is reflected in a greater percentage of individuals who received Spinraza who achieved motor function as well as survived compared to untreated individuals. In open label uncontrolled trials, patients who were treated with Spinraza, these patients showed improvements including the achievement of milestones such as the ability to sit, stand, or walk. They maintained milestones at ages of which they would be expected to lose them, and surviving longer than expected considering the typical course of their disease. The safety of Spinraza has been evaluated in these trials, and these trials all included patients with spinal muscular atrophy. Next slide. So how does Spinraza work? So we believe that Spinraza is able to increase the full-length SMN protein by targeting a process through which it's produced from the SMN2 gene, or the survival motor neuron 2 gene. Spinraza is given through a intrathecal injection. This is a lumbar puncture where the therapy is injected into the fluid that surrounds the spinal cord. This procedure is performed under the direction of a healthcare provider experienced in administering lumbar punctures. Sedation may be used depending upon the individual receiving the therapy. Next slide. So dosing. So the recommended dosage of Spinraza is 12 milligrams per administration. First 4 doses are called loading doses. The first 3 should be given at 14-day intervals. The 4th dose should be then given 30 days after the 3rd. And then maintenance dosing should be given once every 4 months thereafter. Again, your healthcare provider is always the primary source of information about any questions that you have on Spinraza. So please reach out to them with any questions you have or any events that you notice while on the treatment, so that they can work with you on to best answer your questions. And so with that, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Liam Moy, to talk about some of our support programs for eligible patients. Liam?
Great. Thank you, Wilden. Hi, everyone. My name is Liam Moy, and I work in Biogen's Patient Services Department. It is my role to develop the support services for Spinraza. And I am very excited and happy to be here today to walk you through how Biogen is going to support those taking Spinraza. So my colleague Cynthia and I will walk through Biogen's support services model, as we are responsible for the teams of people who will be supporting the families throughout their treatment journey. So before we begin talking about the support programs, it's important to know that in order to receive Biogen's support services, your healthcare provider must first have prescribed Spinraza. So the first step should be to consult with your healthcare provider about this treatment option. So now let's talk about how to enroll in our services. Everything starts with the START form. This is a really important form. It is not a requirement. It's also not a prescription. What it is it's the entryway to Biogen's support services. It only has to be filled out once, but it allows you allows Biogen to provide you with support services. The START form includes a healthcare provider section and a patient section. Both need to be filled out. Both need to be signed by the doctor and the patient or caregiver, and then faxed back into Biogen. We are right now working hard to make sure physicians have access to this form. They should have received it from Biogen. They can also request it from us, or they can download it online. One important thing is that there's a consent section on the START form. The patient caregiver's signature provides HIPAA consent to Biogen. HIPAA, which is short for Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, is the law protecting your information. So by signing the form, you're actually allowing Biogen to have access to your information. We then use this to provide the support services that we're about to go over. So once everything is signed and completed, the START form will then be faxed into Biogen. We can go to the next slide, please. So now I'd like to introduce you to SMA 360. Again, once we have the START form, we can enroll you into SMA 360. So Biogen's SMA 360 program supports families by taking, the program supports families taking Spinraza by focusing on non-medical barriers to access. So these would include things like logistical assistance, product education, understanding insurance coverage, and financial assistance programs such as copay assistance. We have a specialized team managing SMA 360 who is here to assist with all things Spinraza. We can go to the next slide, please. So again, as we discussed, once the START form is completed by both you and your physician and then faxed in by your healthcare provider, you will be enrolled in Biogen's support services. So once enrolled, a family access manager or an SMA support coordinator will reach out to talk more about the services that SMA 360 can provide. They will guide you step by step through the process and the available services. Momentarily, we'll talk more about the role of the Family Access Manager and also of the SMA Support Coordinator. But please know that either person could be reaching out to you to begin the process. So now I'm very happy to introduce Cynthia Cassandro, who oversees the Family Access Manager team, and she will provide you with a great overview of how they are available to assist you in your treatment process.
Hi, great. Thank you, Liam. And hello to everybody on the call. So this is very exciting. I am really excited and privileged to lead this experienced group of professionals that we call Biogen's Family Access Managers, or otherwise known as FAMs. And this is the team that's going to support the families and the healthcare professionals throughout the treatment journey. And the FAMs, or Family Access Managers, are located across the country, and this is so that they can best meet your needs locally. They're available for either remote or face-to-face meetings, depending on what works best for you. And if you read some of the quotes on the screen from a few of our team members, you can see that this team was chosen because they are very committed and passionate about the SMA community. The Family Access Managers, they all have very diverse backgrounds in the healthcare industry with specific experience working in either different types of rare diseases, patient access roles. They have expertise in reimbursement and advocacy work. And this team really understands how to manage the logistical complexities that can come with a biologic therapy that's administered by a healthcare professional. So next slide, please. So here's the team. We have 20 Family Access Managers that are located across the country. So as I said, no matter where you live, there is a FAM that's nearby and ready to help and guide you or your family through the process. And so we hope that as you're looking at this slide, it's providing some familiar faces to you for either some potential people that you'll be meeting, and it's quite possible that some of you have actually already met your Family Access Manager. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk a bit about how the FAMs help to support the logistics in getting started with Spinraza. So while your healthcare professional is always going to be your go-to resource for all medical questions, your Family Access Manager can be your local support for logistical concerns or questions that come along your treatment journey. And as an example, they can provide help in terms of the specifics for your individual health insurance or unique policies of your payer. And if needed, they can connect you to appropriate financial assistance programs. And they will be very familiar with the local healthcare professional team that will be administering therapy. So in that way, they can guide you to appropriate resources within the hospital or treatment center once you and your healthcare team have decided on where you will be treated. They can also help to educate patients, families, and caregivers on Spinraza and our Biogen support services, and help to organize details around the overall Spinraza treatment journey. It's important to remember that FAMs become involved after you've provided, you as either a family member or an individual have provided consent so that Biogen can engage with you for support services, as this was previously described by Liam, and primarily after you and your healthcare professional have submitted a completed start form, which Liam also spoke about. They'll also ensure, the FAMs will, that your healthcare professional knows when you've provided consent to engage with our services so that we're connecting all of the resources between the healthcare professional and the families or the individual patients. And if the level of relationship that you have with your Family Access Manager is really dependent on you and your unique needs. And in this way, we have very individualized and flexible programs that will support your treatment journey. The Family Access Manager is really intended to be there with you throughout the entire treatment journey, not just at the beginning of treatment. I'm now going to turn back over to Liam, who's going to talk more about the SMA support coordinators.
Thank you, Cynthia. We realize how important it is to have someone to turn to for your logistical questions throughout your treatment journey. We also realize that there are a lot of questions that come up before you can even get access to treatment. The SMA support coordinators are answering questions right now from families and can be a great resource for you to discuss insurance considerations. We've been getting a lot of calls from families and from people with SMA. The team is very excited to take these calls and to begin helping everyone through their treatment journey. The SMA support coordinators are our behind-the-scenes team here to help you with your Spinraza questions. Your family access managers will continue to be your primary contact and will be available to continue to support you in person. Really wanted to show this photo of everyone so that you could see some of our team and get to know who is on the other end of the phone when you call in. So we recognize that cost and access to treatments are key considerations for families. As I stated earlier, Biogen is committed to helping individuals who may benefit from Spinraza have access to therapy. Our goal is that no family forgoes treatment based on financial limitations or insurance status. I want to repeat that. That's an important statement. Our goal is that no family forgoes treatment based on financial limitations or insurance status. The SMA support coordinators can help to investigate insurance benefits to help you understand your coverage. They can partner with your healthcare providers so they can complete any insurance-related authorizations. They can provide support in the event of a denied insurance claim. It can educate you about Biogen's $0 copay program, which can potentially cover both your Spinraza prescription as well as the treatment procedure for eligible patients. They can supply information and resources to refer you to third-party charitable organizations, and they can counsel you and your family on the possibility of adding or changing insurance. The team is available 8:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, and can be reached at 1-844-4-SPINRAZA, which is 844-477-4672.
Okay, thank you, Liam. So next we're going to walk through the steps that are involved in getting started on treatment, and we fully realize and share all of the excitement in the community upon FDA approval. And as with any first therapy, there are many things that are new, and we know it's going to take some time across all of the teams that are involved. And this includes our Biogen services, your healthcare providers, centers who are going to provide treatment, insurance companies, government payers, all of whom may be involved in the process and all have steps that they need to work through before you may get treatment or be scheduled for your treatment. So there are several components in each of these steps listed on the diagram, and these are really like the key ones of the treatment journey, although there will be others that are not listed here. So we expect to be variation across centers and hospitals and as to when clinicians can begin scheduling and dosing. So we've outlined some of those that will need to happen after we've had FDA approval. So let's take a look at these steps in more detail. So step one, super important, obviously, and we know this is an incredible milestone that's already been reached to enable access to treatment. And we celebrate this tremendous accomplishment and really thank all of you for making this happen. And from here, we've talked about this as a next step. It's really important and critical in the overall process for families or individuals to have a discussion with your individual healthcare provider, and you determine whether treatment with Spinraza is appropriate for you or your child. And you'll also have a discussion with your healthcare team about where treatment will be administered. And this may be at a different location and not necessarily where your primary doctor is located. It's also important to note that Biogen cannot and will not make any recommendations about who may prescribe Spinraza, nor can we make any recommendations about where you may receive your treatment. However, once treatment is decided upon, and if you and your healthcare provider have opted to use our Biogen support services, as a next step, you can see highlighted here in step 2, you should complete a Spinraza start form. And Liam talked about the fact that this start form is not a requirement to start treatment, and it is also not a prescription. So your healthcare provider will write a prescription for Spinraza and work with that specific treatment center on procuring the drug and the administration process at that hospital or treatment center. And at step 3, you see once we have the signed start form and it's sent into Biogen, then the SMA support coordinator that Liam talked about along with the family access managers, can start to begin to engage on all of the coordination to move forward with the next steps in the process. Moving on to step 4, you can see that this is an illustration of a treatment center or a hospital, and there are many steps that that unique treatment center may have to complete to ensure that their healthcare teams are ready to provide treatment with Spinraza. Some of these steps will be determining where treatment is administered within the center, those healthcare team members that could be involved in providing the intrathecal injection, and then there are other variables that will vary from treatment center to treatment center. And as we've discussed, we have the family access managers who are here to help all of you. We also have another team of professionals that are working directly with these treatment centers to ensure they are all set up in terms of logistics and they can provide dosing with Spinraza. And then lastly, you see step 5, there is a continuum after each procedure. Each treatment center or hospital will have a post-procedure follow-up and next steps unique to their process and your unique needs as a patient. So the Biogen team will be in close contact with families to ensure ongoing support and access to subsequent doses after the initial injection. So in summary, your family access manager, your SMA support coordinators, and others within the Biogen team will be here with all of you on this treatment path, and we're here to help guide you, address any logistical concerns. If we have a completed start form signed by both you and your healthcare provider, we'll be better able to help you, and we'll also understand the next steps with more clarity. So we want to help set expectations. We want to be here to inform you on next steps. We know timeframes vary from healthcare center and insurance providers as they establish the best path forward for everybody. And our teams are super excited about working with you. We share your hope, we share your excitement and anticipation, and we look forward to working with all of these next steps with all of you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kenneth, who's going to summarize our discussion and address some of your specific questions.